those few who dare, heading for glory, leaving a prayer. Here's to the heroes who change our lives. Thanks to the heroes, freedom survives. Here's to the heroes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take the opportunity to welcome you to the presentation ceremony of the French Legion of Honor Medal to several members of America's greatest generation, the liberators of France, Belgium, Holland, Luxembourg, Denmark, Norway, and a host of other nations. The Legion of Honor Medal is the highest award bestowed upon foreigners by the French government, a fitting tribute to the service members who are here today, all well into their 90s. Today's ceremony came due to the hard work of local historian Brad Hoops and Miss Terry Gans of the French Consulate in Los Angeles. Many thanks to these two fine individuals, without whom this ceremony would not be possible. And a special thank you to Tori Serrato and the staff at Good Samaritan for everything you have done to make this event possible. I also want to recognize representatives from the office of Senator Michael Bennett, Senator Cory Gardner, Representative Joe Nagese, Representative Ken Buck, the Honorable Mayor of Windsor, Christy Melendez, and a special thanks to the University of Northern Colorado Army ROTC providing the colors. And on behalf of the World War II veterans and everyone in attendance, I especially want to thank the Honorable Christophe Lemoine, Consul General of France in Los Angeles, for taking time out of his very busy schedule to be with us here today. Sir, your honored presence is most appreciated. Thank you. If you are able, please rise to the presentation of the colors and the national anthems of France and the United States. what they did in service during the war and where they were stationed and what battles and whatnot they fought for. So our today's honorees: Lieutenant Leila Morrison, Lieutenant Armand Sedgeley, Lieutenant Bill Powell, Staff Sergeant Philip Daly, Staff Sergeant Harry Maroncelli, and special recognition of First Lieutenant Joe Graham. Leila Morrison is a native of Blue Ridge, Georgia, graduated from nursing school at the age of 22, and volunteered to be an Army nurse in 1943. Completed her basic training right here in Lowry Field in Denver, Colorado. Then her future husband at Camp Bowie in Texas. She was then shipped to England to complete training, then over to France, landing on Omaha Beach with the 118th Evacuation Hospital of the American First Army, where she later participated in the Battle of the Bulge, the largest land battle ever fought by the United States Army in the coldest winter Europe experienced in over 50 years. And I have to say, Leila, that if I knew you were my nurse in my company, I'd have had sickness every day. Extraordinarily beautiful woman, Leila. I'd have broken every bone or something. Every excuse. Being part of the post-operative ward, that she was close to the front on numerous occasions, operating out of a diagram such as this in standard Army evacuation hospital in the field. This is a picture of one just outside of the Ardennes during the Battle of the Bulge. The evac hospitals was the third tier of evacuation of American wounded and Allied wounded. Eventually, once they crossed the Rhine River, she said in Ubenbach, Germany, which is southwest of Cologne. Toward the end of the war, as we started accumulating more and more German prisoners, and also civilians who needed medical treatment, the First Army took over the management of a large number of these hospitals and treated upwards of 90,000 German casualties toward the end of the war. She also experienced the horrors of war that few have ever seen at the Buchenwald concentration camp north of Nuremberg. After turning down 2 proposals from her beau, she finally said yes, but only after the war was over. First Lieutenant Armand Sedgeley is from Canton, Maine, born in 1921. Aviation cadet, later attended Bombardier School and a host of training facilities throughout the country. Was assigned to the 340th Bomb Squadron, 97th Bomb Group, 15th Air Force in Italy. This is the crew of her did, which is the name of this plane. Now, for those of us men in attendance, we know Valentine's Day is always a bit of a crawl. There's more money, except to pay off our Christmas bills. Now we got Valentine's. Well, Armand remembers Valentine's Day for another reason. He was shot down that day. In 1944, in his 37th combat mission, flying at Foggia Airfield Complex in Italy, bombing the marshalling yards of Verona. His plane was attacked. This picture of his crew. For whatever reason, the guns froze up on the tail gunner's twin 50s. It was B-17. The Luftwaffe figured it out very quickly. They were attacked by FW-190s and ME-109s. Seeing how they knew they could not get back to the Foggia Airfield Complex, they decided to head for the nearest Allied airfield, which happened to be a British fighter base on the French island of Corsica. So they headed over the water to Corsica, throwing out all the weight possible to keep the B-17 in the air. There's a map showing Calvi, Corsica. There were 10 members on his crew, 7 survived the ditching, 3 did not. 2 members of his crew were found by French divers in 1965, recovered by the U.S. Army. And the last one, which I'll get to in a minute, was not recovered till a few years ago. This is the last man from Armand's crew to be recovered, Staff Sergeant Tony Duca. This is a description of Armand's interview I did with him in 2005. It was at one of my prior jobs in the military. I was the officer in charge of finding missing in action Americans in Europe from World War II. I tracked Armand down through loads of research and to tell him that we were looking for Sergeant Duca. Duca was a tail gunner of B-17, the same position as Field Daly, which we'll get to in a moment. When Armand's plane hit the water, the tail section broke off and floated away, so his remains were not found. This is a picture of Armand and his crew being rescued by the British Air Sea Rescue Service. And if you Google Calvi Corsica B-17, look on Google Images, you will see Armand's plane in the water. It's been stripped of everything that divers can take off of it by now. It's just the hulk, the body's still there. This is the Joint PWMA Accounting Command Team, what was known at the time. That's the organization I worked for at the time. Now, in 2006, I gave Armand the opportunity to travel with me to Calvi, Corsica. And he readily accepted. So we took Armand out into a boat in the middle of the harbor. There we are on our way to Calvi. He enjoyed touring Paris. This is Armand's crash site. Now what we did, we took Armand and the RAF Air Sea title charts from the day, British Air Sea Rescue reports. We took Armand out into a boat. He'd been a civil engineer after the war. We gave the approximate weight of a B-17 tail section, title charts, blah, blah, blah. Much too smart for me. So Armand drew out a triangular area in the harbor of Calvi, Corsica, where we should drop sonar overboard to find the tail wheel of the aircraft because we were looking for the tail section. At the end of our second day, due to Armand's chart he drew out, we found the tail section, and a couple of years ago, the body of Sergeant Duca was returned to his family. I've been around, I used to work in the NFL and professional sport before joining the military, but I've never been around a star like Armand in Calvi, Corsica. Armand had been back twice, a couple of times since the war. Everyone knew who Armand was in Calvi. His machine gun is mounted on the police chief wall, which he tried to give it to us as a gift, but I didn't think customs would allow that back into the U.S. So we had to leave Armand's machine gun in Calvi at the police chief. But it was amazing how many people knew him. They'd stop traffic, we walked across the street. You couldn't drink all the wine and booze. They didn't want to give Armand the food. It was quite the, he could definitely be mayor of Calvi, Corsica someday. I was stationed here at Fort Collins as the executive officer of Army ROTC for a few years. And I had known Armand a long time, but what Armand didn't know, or I didn't know until I accidentally found it, was one of the crew members from his plane was actually buried here in Fort Collins. And so we took Armand out to the cemetery and let him see the graveside of Holzhauser, which is the radio operator. Bill Powell, the B-24 Liberator pilot, although we won't hold that against him because we know the B-17 was a better airplane. 764th Bomb Squadron, 461st Bomb Group, 15th Air Force in Italy. He said he was training in Havana, Cuba, but he's at a bar called Sloppy Joe's. I'm not sure what kind of training he was doing, but I've probably done some of that myself. The Toretta Airfield Complex near Foggia was the largest airfield concentration in the world at the time. Hundreds of American and British fighter and bomber groups were stationed here during the war, after it was liberated by the British 8th Army. There's pictures of his squadron area. That's what it looked like during the war. That's what it looks like today. Bill was flying off the lead ship on his port side. And what happened a lot in World War II, unfortunately, was that a bomb group would get out of position, the top group, a bomb could hang up and not drop on time. But whatever happened, two American 500-pound bombs hit the plane next to his, blew it out of the air, also blew up Bill's plane. Killed his co-pilot and came within inches of killing Bill. The shrapnel coming from the bomber. He received a Distinguished Flying Cross for keeping his plane in the air long enough for all of his crew members, with the exception of the co-pilot, to bail out. The target for today was Munich West Railroad Marshalling Yard, a repeated target of Allied bombers throughout the war. The picture of Bill beside his airplane and crew. This is a copy of the front page of Bill's Macker, which is a missing aircrew report. Two vital pieces of information on this document that still aids Americans like myself when I was in that job and those running it today. The serial numbers from the engines and serial numbers from the machine guns. If you find one of these numbers somewhere, then you found the airplane you're looking for. It's a very important piece of information. It helps identify a lot of Americans. There's still 78,000 Americans missing from World War II. Now, Bill claims he didn't name his airplane. This particular lady painted, the rather attractive lady painted on the side of the ship. But I'll produce evidence number one. You see, hit by bombs crash, pilot Bill Powell in command. Clearly states that he was flying the plane named Mailbox, so he still denies it to this day. Excuse me, ladies. If you had to bail out of an aircraft in World War II, you were automatically a member of the Caterpillar Club. Parachutes are made out of silk, so you were obviously a part of the Caterpillar Club. Bill became a prisoner in Stalag Luft I on the Baltic Sea. And these documents you're seeing now are his actual German POW file. As the Russians approached from the east, the German guards evacuated, so all the American POWs had access to their own personnel files. These are extremely rare documents. This is life in Stalag Luft I. You see Barth on the Baltic, almost in Poland. Szczecin is actually in Poland. I've been there looking for Americans as well. Unusual for POWs, Bill was kept a diary. This is his block mates. Recipe for cream spam. Must be delicious. Daily schedule, show roll call, reveille, chow time, library hours, lights out. It's a picture of Bill's room. Occasionally, the Germans would allow them the American Red Cross or Canadian Red Cross packages with various treats in them from whichever country, but not very rarely. The Germans hoarded them for themselves because at the end of the war, the Germans were starving as well. This is German rations on the left, the Canadian Red Cross examples of a Canadian food partial. This is Stalag Luft I North Compound. Ironically, stand up. Ironically, Clayton Napier was about 100 feet away from building the same prison camp during the war. They were liberated by Russians driving an American Jeep. I'm sure they paid for it. It's a monument to the 461st Bomb Group. Camp Lucky Strike. There were what's called cigarette camps throughout France at the end of the war, and they were repatriation camps for American POWs. All the POWs went through these camps so they could be medically cleared for processing to return to the United States. There were 9 camps throughout France by the end of the war, the Lucky Strike being one of the largest, and 58,000 Americans went through this camp. And Phil Daly, as we will get to in a moment, was in Lucky Strike as well. I'll let you read that for a quick second. You haven't eaten food, proper food, in a long time. It takes your body quite a while to get used to digesting food again, real food again. You ever go down to Miami, Florida, and travel over the big bridge down there? It is known as the William Powell Bridge. Bill was a civil engineer after the war. Again, he denies this, but I've heard on good authority there's a toll booth down there he gets kickbacks from. He denies it. Staff Sergeant Phil Daly. Ladies, beware, he's very available. As we found out in New Orleans when we took him down to the National World War II Museum, his daughters were horrified. These women were throwing themselves at him on Bourbon Street. Phil's a B-17 telegunner, 772 Bomb Squadron, 463rd Bomb Group, in the 15th Air Force. Like the others, he flew out of the Fujia Airfield Complex, his wing, or his group being at Ceylon. This is airfield at the time. This is airfield today. At the time, today. This information came from Phil's Macker's missing aircrew report. As indicates, the pilot had to kick the airplane within a level flight long enough for all 10 members of his crew to bail out. This is a copy of the front page of his missing aircrew report. This is Phil's airplane, serial number 448118. Don't complain about your cramped cubicle in your office space. This was Phil's office in 25 missions. Phil was transported to the enlisted man's prison camp in Poland, across Krakow, where he spent over 4 months. But as the Russians approached from the east, the Germans evacuated all the prison camps in Poland and put them on the famous Winter March. The diagram drawn by POW from slide number 4. Unfortunately, history isn't taught in schools today, so I don't know how much the young people in here would know. But you should relatively heard about the Bataan Death March in the Philippines. However, what a lot of people have not heard about is the Winter March in Germany. Phil and his prison mates marched over 600 miles in the dead of winter until the very end of the war, where they were liberated by British troops. We marched all day, every day, slept in barns and open fields at night. initial parts of the march ended in Hanover, Germany, but as the British approached from the west, they were put back in boxcars and transported southeast, and turned right back around again and forced the march back toward northwestern Germany, east of Hamburg, where they were liberated by British troops. See, approximately 600 miles from Gross-Tachau to where they were picked up by British forces. Almost 90 days on his feet every day. Over 1,300 passed away or were killed by German guards. And as I say in the statement, these men have never been properly recognized for the sacrifices they made for our country. Staff Sergeant Harry Maroncelli, also known as Harry the Harlot. I spent 50 years reading World War II. The most interesting book I've ever read is Harry's bomb log from his missions over Germany. Because inevitably you fly a mission, hooks up with a woman. Flies a mission, hooks up with a woman. It's just how we all should have combat tours like that. I know mine wasn't like that. He's from Brooklyn, New York. Bronx. No wonder I can't understand the words he's saying. 615 Bomb Squadron, 41st Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force in Deanthorpe, England. There's a picture of Harry and his crew. If there was ever an appropriate crew member named for his ship, Little Cheeser would be it for Harry. This was Harry's office, B-17 ball turret, his famous Sperry ball. Through 35 combat missions, but due to Allied air superiority at that time in the war, he never saw a German fighter. By that time, we were flying 1,200 bombers at a time. Although we did see flak, the famous German 88mm gun, the best weapon in World War II. This is what a flak can do to a B-17. The 401st is based at Deanthorpe, northwest of Cambridge. The American bomber bases in England were cookie-cutter bases. They were all practically the same. And they were returned to British farmers after the war. Most of them were returned after the war. Although you can still see remnants of airfields all over England today. I was stationed there for almost 5 years, and just really had a good old time touring these old World War II bases. I had the honor and privilege, indeed an honor, to take Harry back to England to find his old air base in March of 2017, along with one of our cadets from UNC, Cadet Duffy. There with a hand, posing for pictures in Cambridge. It's amazing. I go to park the car, I came back, Harry's talking to a woman. Less than 3 minutes, he's already talking to a woman. The American Military Cemetery in Cambridge, England. Very beautiful place. Deanthorpe's where his base is located. A monument to his bomb group and to his crew. And this is the middle of the runway for the first bomb group, now used for civilian purposes. And this is looking through Harry's diary, found all kinds of information, some I certainly can't share with you. This place on Eden Street is actually where Harry had his laundry done. So we went back to the same place in the car to take a picture. Tower Bridge. This is not London Bridge, by the way. Most Americans think this is London Bridge. It's Tower Bridge. And the famous tube. See, I told you, you always have a nice face when women are around. And ironically, the London Bridge, the real London Bridge, Harry and I had just got off the water taxi. We got off at the abutment of that bridge, and 4 days later, the terrorist attack came through the exact same spot. So it was a bit eerie. I'll now turn you over to Mr. Lemoine to discuss the French Award.
Thank you very much. I am Christophe Lemoine, and I think my accent speaks for itself, the French Consul in Los Angeles, and I'm very happy to be here with you all today, and I'm very glad to see that it's a full house, and I'm very honored to be here to honor 5 veterans that are here. And before starting my remarks, I would like first to thank our host, the Good Samaritan Society, for providing the venue and the logistics for the ceremony here today. So thank you very much, because this event wouldn't have been possible without you. Especially Brett Hoops for his invaluable support in organizing the ceremony and coordinating with all the participants and their families. And I would like also to thank very warmly Lieutenant Colonel Frank Huffman for making the special trip today to be the master of ceremony and honor these veterans. Ladies and gentlemen, dear veterans, it's a very special day for me as a French consul in Los Angeles, and not only because I'm out of California and in Colorado, but also because I'm here to express the everlasting gratitude of the people of France to all American and allied veterans of the Second World War who helped France to restore its freedom, and today particularly 5 exceptional veterans. First Lieutenant Leila Morrison, First Lieutenant Armand Sedgeley, Second Lieutenant William Powell, Staff Sergeants Philip Daly, and Staff Sergeant Harry Maroncelli. And I quote those names, all those 5 names, because as young men and women that left their homes to fight and liberate not only France, but the whole European continent. And doing this, they defended democracy and human rights. Their accomplishments during the war are a vibrant reminder of the profound friendship that links France and the United States. A friendship bound in bloodsheds and hardships ever since the War of Independence. And from the glorious days of Yorktown to the green battlefields of Château-Thierry, from the beaches of Normandy to the mountains of Afghanistan, our countries have been fighting side by side for freedom. And I would remind you, because it's important, I think, to know that freedom is not a gift. And it doesn't come without a price. Freedom requires determination. Freedom requires sacrifices. Dear honorees, dear veterans, the French people will never forget that you helped restore their freedom. Your courage and your dedication is an example to us all. You are examples of the greatest generation, which faced the despair and deprivation of the Great Depression, and went on to fight for liberty and freedom during the Second World War, and then rebuilt Europe and Japan, and invented a freer, more democratic world after the war. And you remind us that no matter how great the challenge, It can be met when honest men and women stand up with determination and courage. And today, you are an inspiration to us all and to the younger generations. Today, we also honor the memory of your comrades who made the ultimate sacrifice. We remember their courage, we remember their devotion in the face of adversity. We remember that they are an unbreakable link in the long chain of friendships between our two countries, and they will forever remain in our hearts. So today, on behalf of the French government and on behalf of the French president, and also, and I would say especially on behalf of the people of France, I would like to say, and very sincerely from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for your bravery. Thank you very much for your heroism. Thank you very much for your sacrifices. And I will conclude those remarks by wishing a long life to the United States of America, a long life to the French-American friendship, and vive la France. Thank you very much.
First Lieutenant Leila Morrison.
Leila Morrison, au nom du Président de la République et en vertu des pouvoirs qui me sont conférés, je vous fais chevalier dans l'ordre de la Légion d'honneur.
First Lieutenant Armand Sedgeley.
Armand Sedgeley, au nom du Président de la République et en vertu des pouvoirs qui me sont conférés, je vous fais chevalier dans l'ordre de la Légion d'honneur.
Second Lieutenant William Powell.
William Powell, au nom du Président de la République et en vertu des pouvoirs qui me sont conférés, je vous fais chevalier dans l'ordre de la Légion d'honneur.
Staff Sergeant Philip Daly.
Philippe Daly, au nom du Président de la République et en vertu des pouvoirs qui me sont conférés, je vous fais chevalier dans l'ordre de la Légion d'honneur.
Staff Sergeant Harry Maroncelli.
Harry Maroncelli, au nom du Président de la République et en vertu des pouvoirs qui me sont conférés, je vous fais chevalier dans l'ordre de la Légion d'honneur.
We do have one more veteran to recognize, First Lieutenant Joe Graham. Unfortunately, Joe passed away a few months ago, so could not be with us here today. However, we honor his service and his sacrifice and what he did for our nation. Joe enlisted in the Army in June 1941 before Pearl Harbor, attended Officer Candidate School, and assigned to the Light Tank Company D, 781st Tank Battalion, 100th Infantry Division. The 781st sailed from New York to France on the USS Lejeune, landing in Marseille in southern France, attached to the 7th American Army. Landed here, fighting in the town of Bitch, and became known as the Sons of Bitch, the 100th Battalion. That was their moniker. They helped liberate the famed French Maginot Line. This is a unit going through the town in March of 45. Went up in north of Stuttgart and Heilbronn. And detached from 100th Infantry Division, assigned to the 103rd, driving to the Bavarian Alps. One up in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, we still have a base in Garmisch today. Two very good books about the 100th ID, buttoned up, and the history of the division written by the Army historians. That was the end of the slideshow. I want to thank you all for coming out today. Mr. Lemoine, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule. This concludes today's ceremony. Thank you all for coming, and please join us for refreshments in the atrium. Thank you.